Introduction: A world without technology. Survival in the medieval wilderness. Imagine a world where there were no flashlights, no electricity, no supermarkets, and no Google to search how to start a fire. The medieval era was a time when survival was not a choice, it was a necessity carved into every moment of life. People depended on their own hands, nature's raw materials, and inherited wisdom passed down through generations. In the face of cold winters, wild animals, invading enemies, and food scarcity, humans built tools not with machines, but with sweat, patience, and primitive ingenuity. These were the real survivalists. Let's explore the essential handcrafted survival tools that defined human resilience during the medieval age. 1. Fire striker and tinderbox, igniting hope. In the darkness of the medieval woods, fire wasn't just warmth, it was life. The fire striker, made from high-carbon steel, was struck against flint to generate sparks. These sparks would land on char cloth or dry moss stored in a tinderbox. The process required skill and knowledge of the right materials. Without fire, there was no way to cook food, fend off predators, or stay warm during brutal winters. Every medieval traveler or soldier carried this tool religiously. The tinderbox was often a small tin or wooden container with bits of flammable material, linen cloth charred to make it easily catch fire, dried leaves, or fungus like amadou. These humble-looking kits were the difference between life and death. Even the act of starting a fire symbolized control over nature. The sound of steel striking stone echoed not just survival, but dominance over the elements. The bow and arrow, silent hunters of the forest. The bow and arrow were elegant yet lethal creations. Crafted from yew, ash, or elm wood, longbows could take weeks or even months to shape properly. The string was made from twisted animal sinew or hemp. Arrows featured bone, stone, or iron tips, with fletching made from feathers for flight stability. In hunting, a bow meant protein. In warfare, it meant power. Archery required strength, precision, and silence, essential qualities for surviving in both the forest and the battlefield. Medieval hunters relied on their knowledge of animal behavior, using calls, scent masking, and camouflage to get close enough for a clean shot. The arrowhead design often varied. Broadheads for large game, bodkin points for piercing armor. The handcrafted bow was not just a tool, it was an extension of the survivalist's will. Hand axes and hatchets, tools of 1,000 uses. No medieval toolkit was complete without a hand axe. Forged from iron or steel and fitted onto a wooden shaft, these axes were used to chop firewood, build shelters, hunt, and even as weapons. Their versatility made them indispensable. A survivalist could fell trees, split bones, clear pathways, or defend themselves from wild beasts or invaders. The design was intentionally compact, making it easy to carry on belts or horse saddles. Some axes doubled as throwing weapons in battle, while others were finely honed for carving and construction. In remote villages, blacksmiths specialized in axe making, and families passed down their axes like heirlooms. The weight, balance, and sharpness of a good hand axe made it a true symbol of medieval survival. Spears were among the oldest and most reliable tools of the medieval survivalist. Made by affixing sharpened stone, iron, or fire-hardened wood to long poles, these weapons were used for both hunting and self-defense. Spears allowed for distance in battle or in bringing down large prey such as boars or deer. Their length provided an edge in close encounters with wild animals or enemies, while their simplicity made them easy to repair or replicate in the field. Animal traps, on the other hand, reflected a cunning form of survival. Using sticks, stones, ropes, and tension mechanisms, medieval people constructed snares and deadfall traps to catch rabbits, foxes, and birds. These traps required intimate knowledge of animal behavior and terrain. For a survivalist, setting traps meant conserving energy, no need to chase prey all day. Cornstone, the pulse of sustenance. The cornstone was a staple of every medieval household. This simple, yet brilliant grinding tool allowed people to process grain into flour, a vital food source. It usually consisted of two circular stones, the bottom one stationary, the top one rotating with a handle. Operating the cornstone was hard, repetitive labor, usually performed by women and children. But it turned raw, inedible grain into life-sustaining bread. In survival scenarios, the ability to process food efficiently and preserve it in the form of flatbreads, Porridges or gruels could keep a family alive through harsh seasons, creating a sense of community around survival. Beyond its function, the cornstone was a symbol of endurance, resilience, and daily triumph over hunger. 6. Clay pots and water vessels, carriers of life. Water was as valuable as gold in the medieval wilderness, and durable tools. Whether for hydration, cooking, or cleaning wounds, a well-made clay pot was a medieval lifeline. 7. Shelter building tools, crafting a fortress from the forest. Shelter meant survival, whether avoiding freezing winds or shielding from predators. Medieval people used handcrafted tools to build homes, huts, or makeshift camps. The adze, a cousin of the axe, with a perpendicular blade, was used for smoothing and shaping wood. Mallets made from hardwood and chisels of iron help carve joints and pegs. Survivalists also employ wedges and wooden levers to split logs, vines for binding, and primitive plumb bobs to gauge straight lines. Even a simple spade, carved from oak or elm, played a key role in digging trenches, latrines, or earthen shelters. A shelter was more than a roof. It was a psychological barrier against chaos, a place of security and rest. Building one required not just tools, but wisdom, vision, and courage. Sewing and leathercraft tools, repair, reinforce, resist. Clothing was armor. In the unforgiving wild, staying warm and dry could save a life. Survivalists carried bone needles, sinew threads, and curvballs for patching garments, wooden forms to shape them, and heated stones for pressing seams. With no modern fabrics, people turned animal skins into cloaks, boots, and containers. Sewing kits were often stored in horn cases or leather pouches. Survival was stitched together literally by the ability to mend, modify, and create from whatever material was available. The sound of thread pulling through leather was the sound of preparation, of persistence. 9. Rope making and cordage kits. Binding the wild. Rope was indispensable, from securing shelters to making traps, dragging game, or crafting bows. Medieval survivors spun cordage from hemp, flax, or animal hair. Tools included hand spindles and twisting sticks to braid strong strands. Rope making often happened in long, cleared lanes called rope walks. Even in the forest, survivalists could twist vines or fibers between stakes to produce sturdy lines. Knots and weaves were passed down orally, with specific ties for specific tasks. To bind the world to your will, to lift and pull and tie and trap it all started with cordage. 10. Bone needles and awls. The subtle tools of resilience. Long before industrial needles, bone served as the go-to material. Sharpened with stones, polished with sand, and often carved from the leg bones of deer or cattle. These needles were small but mighty. Awls, used to punch holes in leather or wood, were often made from antler or iron. Combined, these tools helped people make tents, stitch sails, craft bags, or decorate clothing with embroidery. They remind us, sometimes, it's the smallest tools that hold everything together. 11. Clay oven, the heart of the medieval hearth. In the cold embrace of the medieval countryside, peasant's village, or hidden deep within a forest shelter, stood an ancient innovation, the clay oven. Handcrafted from the very earth beneath one's feet, this dome-shaped furnace turned raw ingredients into warm meals, baked bread, and medicinal concoctions. Constructed by stacking layers of clay mixed with straw over a stone or brick base, the oven was a marvel of low-tech engineering. Once dry and hardened by the sun, it could retain heat for hours. A fire lit within would heat the interior walls until glowing red, and once the flames were swept out, food could be cooked using the radiant heat alone, a primitive, yet efficient method. But this wasn't just about cooking. In times of famine or siege, the clay oven became a lifeline. It allowed dried grains to be baked into dense, long-lasting loaves. It sterilized water, and boiling over flame wasn't possible. And with clever improvisation, it could even be used to forge soft metal tools or fire pottery, multiplying its usefulness far beyond food. The bellows, the breath of the forge. In a world where fire meant life, warmth, protection, and power, one simple tool stood between survival and extinction: the bellows. Made from wood, leather, and the muscle of the human arm, this humble device gave breath to the flames that shaped weapons, tools, and the very future of medieval civilization. At first glance, the bellows might seem unassuming, a pair of wooden paddles connected by flexible leather, with a nozzle at one end. But in the hands of a blacksmith or a survivor deep in the wilderness, it became a conduit of transformation. By compressing and releasing air into the fire, the bellows could raise temperatures to a point where iron would bend like dough, where bronze could be molded, where raw ore was reborn as blade or plow. Without it, weapons meant danger, and not every villager could wield a bow. Instead, they turned to something older than iron, older than kingdoms: the fishing weir, a primitive yet masterfully crafted trap, made only with hands, branches, and knowledge of water's wool. A fishing weir was more than a trap, it was a strategy. Built by carefully embedding rows of sharpened sticks or woven branches into shallow riverbeds, it guided fish toward a narrow funnel or enclosed chamber. As the current flowed, the fish swam unwittingly into the narrowing pathway until there was nowhere left to go. No bait, no hoax, just patience and design. Medieval folk, especially those in isolated regions or war-torn villages, relied on fishing weirs for constant, low-risk protein. They were crafted using only local willow, alder, or hazel branches, flexible enough to shape, strong enough to hold. The knowledge of building them wasn't written in books. It was whispered between generations, passed down like a sacred code. Some weirs were communal. Entire villages would depend on their yield during fasting seasons or winter months. Others were small and secret, built by lone travelers or outlaws hiding from kings and wars, catching enough fish to survive unseen. The fishing weir is a symbol of silent survival. No roaring forge, no crackling fire, just water, wood, and time. And yet, through this quiet invention, humanity turned nature's rhythm into nourishment, proving that survival isn't always about strength. Sometimes, it's about stillness and strategy. 14. Hand-cranked grain mill, turning seed into survival. In the heart of the medieval world, survival was often measured not by the sword. That stone was the hand-cranked grain mill, an elemental tool carved by calloused hands and driven by sheer necessity. Before industrial mills, before wind or water-powered machines, there was the corn, a simple device made of two circular stones, with a handle to rotate the upper one. Between them, grain would be slowly crushed into flour. The beauty of the tool was in its simplicity. No iron parts, no fire, no nose, just friction, muscle, and rhythm. For peasant families, especially during famine or siege, the hand mill was the difference between starvation and bread. Even a handful of barley or rye could become dense cakes or porridge. Entire communities could be fed with a device that fit in a home's corner or a cave's hollow. And when danger loomed, it could be hidden, carried, rebuilt, because it was made entirely by hand from stone, wood. In a world where kingdoms fell and wars raged, the hand-cranked grain mill kept life going, one turn at a time. From the field to the table, it completed the cycle of survival, proving that with patience and grit, even the hardest seeds can be turned into hope. 15. Torch staff, light born from the wild. In the darkest corners of the medieval world, where wolves howled through the trees and shadows whispered of bandits, beasts, and worse, light wasn't a luxury. It was survival, and for those brave, nothing more than what the forest could offer: a strong, dried branch, stripped and smoothed by hand. Cloth or moss bound tightly at the tip, fat, pitch, or resin smeared and soaked into the fibers to burn long and bright. It required no metal, no glass, no oil lamp, only the knowledge of nature's offerings and the will to keep walking. Used by shepherds guarding flocks, hunters on night patrol, or messengers crossing enemy territory, the torch staff illuminated the unknown. It scared off predators, it revealed safe paths. It gave warmth in the biting cold. In times of siege or retreat, torch staffs lined the trails of escape or lit the hearts of caves where the last survivors waited out their fate. But more than just fire, it was a signal. A torch staff raised in the distance could warn of invasion, summon aid, or mark the path to salvation. And in a world before electricity, it was a miracle born from sticks, sap, and spark. If you enjoyed this journey through the survival secrets of the Middle Ages, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay lit in the darkest times. Survival is an art. Let's master it one tool at a time.